Hello, hello, service driven leaders from around the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our first ever Future TV broadcast. So, a little bit about Future TV. We are here to shift from possibility to reality and usher in the future that all of us are creating. And have that beautiful future be evidenced now. So you'll get to learn from some really exciting change makers and the kinds of work that they're doing to create a new and beautiful future for humanity. And disclaimer, this is not about creating a utopia that only the enlightened go to, okay? This is about everyone. This is about all of humanity. We all have a role to play in shaping our collective future. So whether you resonate with yourself as a leader or a change maker, or you're just curious what other people are up to, I want you to know you are a change maker just by the fact you're watching this thing called Future TV. So big welcome to you. I am your host, Catherine Longy. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and an author and speaker. And I'm really here as a stand for the divine feminine, that together, the divine feminine and the divine masculine together, men and women of all ages, races, backgrounds, disabled, neurodiverse, like whoever you are, wherever you are, that we're going to do this together. And my very first host is one of my favorite people in the world, Jaleh Zandieh. Jaleh, thank you so much for being here and saying yes to this. Like, Catherine, what is this thing? What is this Future TV thing? But saying, yeah, okay, I'll come and show up. You love possibility, and you're bringing that possibility right now in the present time, with that future in mind. So, Jaleh, can you start just by telling us a little bit about you and your stand and what's important to you? Why you said yes to come on this thing today?
Oh, well, thank you, Catherine, for having me, and thank you for having this idea and not having just the idea and then sitting with it and journaling about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and then leaving it in your imagination, but actually bringing it into reality through an action that you felt inspired to do. So thank you for taking action and creating the space and the container for it to happen. I'm really happy to know you. I'm very grateful to our mutual friend who introduced us last year, and he's a wonderful super connector. And he told me just a little bit about you, and I was really looking forward to having our first conversation, which led to our next conversation, which led to our next conversation. And I think after the first hour of our first conversation, we felt like this was not our first conversation. Like it felt very familiar and like we actually resonated with each other on a lot of different topics and common values and ways of seeing the world, and both living abroad, like growing up in the US and living in our adult years abroad in different countries. So I'm very happy to be your first guest, and congratulations, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Just a little bit about me. So my name is Jaleh Zandieh. It's a Persian name. So a lot of times people hear my accent and then see my name and they're like, "You speak English?" and you don't sound like you're a huge foreigner. But when I go abroad, I sound like a foreigner. So it's interesting the idea of foreigner. When you grew up in a country that your name doesn't look like you are American, but your accent does, it can throw people off a little bit. Um, so it's really nice to live outside of a box. It's really nice to not be in one particular category. And so I'm half Persian and half American, and grew up in the Harrisburg, and then Philadelphia, and always had the opportunity to be a minority, and sometimes a triple minority, based on the school district I grew up in, and the community of friends I always got to have. Mostly people of color were my closest friends and confidants and mentors and teachers. And I've always known what it's like to be a good thing. My whole life has been nourished by diversity, which is why it's the title of my latest book. Um, and it's not a buzzword for me. It's actually a part of my whole. It's every page of my life story is diversity being a very important essential ingredient and nutrient. Um, I lived abroad for 2 years in China, where I got to work after grad school for Pearl Buck International, and then I came back to the U.S. And the last 10 years, I've been doing research and consulting work and living in Portugal, where my
Yeah.
husband is half Portuguese. So we both know what it's like to be mixed, and yeah, not
I,
in one category.
I love how you float around the boxes and you kind of jump in and out. So in some contexts you're inside a box, in some contexts you're outside of a box, but how you really flow in and around and in between the boxes. Tell us a little bit about those kinds of intersections. Like you've lived in such culturally rich, being half Persian, living in China, married to a Portuguese in Portugal. Like what have been kind of the greatest benefits or what have enriched your life the most out of all those beautiful cultures that you've really integrated that are who you are today?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. Well, I think one thing that traveling and living in different places and really trying to become a part of the community where we live, regardless of how we look or if we speak the language fluently yet or not, but really trying to learn about the beauty of all the cultural richness that that is so deeply rooted in how people are and how people identify and how they relate to one another, and to understand how people relate to themselves and to each other is a really incredible way to see how we can relate and understand ourselves better, and how we can find places in the world where we can feel at home and with family that we were not born to, and don't have necessarily heritage or connection with, but we feel extraordinarily connected and a sense of belonging to. So I think the first thing I learned is I can feel at home in more than one place in the world. And there are amazing people everywhere. And the value of service is, I think, one of the greatest gifts to wherever I studied or worked or consulted or did my research on service driven leadership or cross cultural leadership. Just realizing that one of the essential ingredients for a fulfilling, meaningful life for so many people, thousands and thousands, actually, I've done more than 6,000 assessments around the world, um, is that when we are able to do something that elevates or encourages or empowers other people, we are becoming our best selves in the process. So it's not a one sided benefit, it's a reciprocally beneficial exchange. And that is one of the greatest uh, common golden threads, I would say, is being with people who are devoted to service because we care about our extended human family.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And tell us a little bit about what service means to you and how you experience it and how you share it with others. Because, first of all, for those of you watching, you are a service driven person. You wouldn't be watching if you didn't care about others. You already care about others. That's why you're watching. But sometimes I find in speaking with people, it can almost become like a burden, or there's this line where it's sort of like a charity, like you've been so much of service, you've given so much that like you now feel like there's like a deficit or something, and it can be kind of like a heavy, oh, gotta be absurd, word. What's your unique view or feeling or evocation of service? What does it mean to you and in the work and context that you do?
Yes. Oh, okay. So I would like to offer two quotes that are running mantras for me, to not get into a pattern of overwhelm or exhaustion or burnout when we are in any path of service, any type of work, any project we're a part of. And so the first one is by Baha'u'llah, and he said that every person is a mine rich in gems of inestimable value. So everyone has these incredible qualities that are just waiting to be excavated and discovered. And once we find what those qualities are, like generosity, thoughtfulness, patience, awareness, sensitivity, creativity, joy, connection, community building, relationship building, trustworthiness, like all of these qualities are kind of like muscles when we're born. They're kind of floppy. They need to be polished, they need to be trained, they need to be repeated over and over. And as we train them, they get stronger and we get more resilient, they have more stamina. And so a marathon runner's legs are very different than a 2 month old's legs, even though they have all of the same musculature. They have all the same joints, but the way they're able to rely or trust their talent and capacity, there's been a great amount of training and reliability because of consistent thoughtfulness and really devoting themselves to that training. And just like precious gems, like first they're just sort of, they have a nice color, but sometimes they need to be polished. They're all the facets start to get more and more refined, and then it reflects more light. And so I think with service, if we're doing something that benefits ourselves in the sense of we're discovering more of our true identity, we're excavating our the richest parts of our innate humanity, our innate goodness, and it's helping our fellow human in some way, it is a reciprocally beneficial process. And we're learning from that person. We're never going to put that other person below us because they're in need of help, or they could benefit from something that I know, or benefit from a person that I could introduce them to, or I could open a door. Because we're all humans, we all need doors open for us. We all need support. We all need encouragement. We all have doubts and fears. Even the most confident leaders that I've worked with, and I've worked with some very impressive, brilliant people, and they still have doubts. People are
Yeah.
still, they can still be very, very mean to them. They are affected when people, backbite against them, or lie or cheat or try to break apart the team that they're assembling to be of assistance to others. So nobody is impervious to pain. There are people, I think, that we can bounce back faster. There's systems or a community in place that help us when we have those stress points or that difficulty. But I think for service, it's how do we actually cultivate our own humanity and elevate someone else's humanity in the process. And that joyfulness is polishing everyone's gems of inestimable value. And then the second very wise person, who was my mentor for a long time, who I just adore her in every way. Her name's Rebecca Murphy. She's originally from Ethiopia, grew up in India, then Alaska. She's lived all over the world. She's incredible. She speaks so many languages, and she and her husband were this like power couple. They were this extraordinary example of what a marriage could be, what a home could feel like. And I I was just welcomed with open arms because they have 3 older sons. And so they were empty nesters when I was in college, and I would sometimes go to their house on the weekends and help them with projects that they were a part of. And she said, Jaleh, it's really important as you get older to find a path of service that brings your heart nothing but joy. When you are doing that work, when you are helping that community, when you are really taking part in a project that's meaningful, or helping to lift people up, or help more communities like become healthier, happier, more thriving, let it be something that brings your heart joy, and it will sustain you. The joy will
Yeah.
sustain you.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with my own personal experiences and how I understand service, which is if it was a value, it would be on a higher level value than some of our, let's call it ego needs, some of the basics, roof over the head, enough, food, shelter, career, esteem, relationships. But when I'm in action being of service, it kind of becomes like an energetic driver that can help actually take care of some of those lower level needs, but that if I'm in a lower life state or like a lower vibrational energy, there's just no access. But when activated, has this wonderful knock-on effect, like, oh, I am lighter, more energetic, more joyful, and that in turn makes me go to the gym. I'm going to cook a healthy meal tonight, which when I'm going to the gym and cooking a healthy meal at night, I have more energy to be of service. So there's this beautiful kind of reciprocity. And tell us about your book, Nourished by Diversity, creating a legacy of community and inclusion for your organization to shine. Now, I've had the privilege of reading your book, but also having been assessed on what my leadership style is. And when I discovered this with you, it was a beautiful, like, oh yeah, that's who I am. It was like it was revealing what I already knew and was maybe not conscious to, that becoming conscious to, well, it actually is why this TV station is born. This is one of the creations that came out of that discovery. So tell us about both the process of birthing this, what you underwent over many years to create this model, and also what it's like for you to help leaders understand their natural leadership styles and how to use them in their life and their impact.
Oh, wow. Your questions are so beautiful. Thank you. Well, I really enjoyed doing and calculating your leadership style. The way you put things into words really made it very easy for me to calculate. Of the 9 service-driven leadership styles in my framework, you really are a wonderful embodiment of your leadership style. How you see possibilities, as you see the things that are most important to tend to, like the needs that are pivotal and crucial for the ripple effect of all the other needs to eventually be looked after. So our leadership styles in my research, it's really to understand what is the almost like the vantage point or the lens that each individual, how do they lead their life? What do they need? What do they see with HD clarity that might be not so clear and obvious to someone else looking at the same situation? And it doesn't mean that one person is right and the other person is wrong. It just means that from different perspectives or different vantage points, you'll see a situation um, not just differently, but it will maybe affect you differently. You'll notice different components of it, and there will be a very quick catalyst of, well, then we should really do this thing first, or we should really try to understand the nature of this underlying problem. So the model was really to develop a perspective, a framework for understanding how do people see things so differently, and how can some people who have had such different life experiences, how can they see something with the same and language it in the exact same wording? And that's really where I was trying to kind of grapple with people who I thought would experience things and perceive it the same way, be affected by it the same way, and therefore be moved to take action to focus on the solution, a particular solution. Um, and I kept being wrong because I was thinking maybe there's a cultural influence that will say, oh, this particular culture will be more about community building, and this culture will be more about innovation and creativity, and this one will be more about humanity and noble actions, and this one will be more about trustworthiness and truth seeking and discovery and knowledge seeking. And so at first I thought there would be like cultural influences, and I was very wrong. Even though there are cultures that do value certain qualities more than others, with these 9 leadership styles, there was a 92-year-old Chinese doctor who almost word for word completed the questions on my assessment tool, the same as a 22-year-old Black young man from Brooklyn, New York. they had very different native language, like different generation, different family structure, different language influence, religious influence, just geographic location, weather, like everything on the surface when you look at their life doesn't look like they have had any of the same other than being of the same gender maybe and being human. But someone in his own in their own family, when they answered the questions, completely different, completely
Mm.
different. So I started to have to get more curious and realize maybe of course we are affected by the environment we're in. We are definitely, we have cultural influences, we have family influences, our own unique life experiences, like what happened to us, how do we perceive things. All of those things matter for sure. And how we want to lead our life, what we want to leave as a legacy, also has a connection to our leadership style, how we choose to lead our life. Even from the time we were children, may have a very unique identity. And I was trying to understand what is that, and I wanted to make a language to explain it and help people feel very, very seen and understood, like they make sense. I think it's really helpful. My clients often say, like, I just met you and I feel like you actually understand how I felt for 40 years. And I could never explain it to anyone. Or I just felt like I was being criticized every time I said it because no one really understood. And so I like people to feel like they make sense. And then
Oh,
once we have all of our uniqueness figured out, then we can think, how do we harmonize all of these different vantage points and all of our talents and all of our different backgrounds? And then, like a symphony, see how do we actually move collectively forward, enriched by all of those diverse vantage points, the cross sections of all of our uniqueness, but not to separate or isolate people.
that's definitely how I felt when I met you for the first time. Like, how is it we've never met before? Like, I feel like we know each other so well. And what I love about your system and your model is that it's very qualitative. And I'm not actually surprised that you're able to capture you're able to capture people's true essence of leadership distinct from their surroundings. Like, I think that's why the external factors have not are not coming into play, because your assessment, I mean, there's quite a lot of questions in there, I'll be honest. Like, but you're writing them out. You're not just answering, oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, da, 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 and getting a very, system says you are, boop, there's your result. You're getting a very deep assessment. And by the fact that it's done in a qualitative way, the essence of people is coming through. And I want to shift the conversation on this to the area of privilege, because this is not, I don't feel like this conversation has a healthy expression in what I'm going to call the ordinary world. Ordinary world is the world we all live in, folks. It's the land of mainstream television, and it's going to be another Trump Biden election this year. Sorry, I'm just calling it now. That's what's predictable. 11 months before the U.S. presidential elections. So that world is like the ordinary world. Future TV world, this TV station is about bringing the future now and showing the evidence of it, like being the demonstration of the future now. And the conversation around privilege, I don't feel like is a mature enough conversation yet. So I'm going to share a little bit my take on privilege. So we tend to think of privilege like something we have or don't have. And if we have it, it's bad because it means we've been advantaged over other people. I want to just call that crap. I almost said the S word. I was almost a little bit more vulgar. I want to just call that out now, that that's like a useless way to think about it. It doesn't give us access to anything that's useful. We are all privileged by the fact you're watching this TV station. Okay. So we already have an immense amount of privilege. We don't need to debate it. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, what are we going to do with it? It's this gift. We've been given this gift. Okay, and how are we going to use it? And I would love in your, because I mean you've worked with some, I mean, incredible people who are CEOs and UN delegates and Grammy award winning music artists. So you've worked with people who have a lot of privilege, and it would be easy to go, oh, those people, like the people that Jaleh works with, like, oh, those people are the ones with the privilege. Like those are the ones that, are going to save us from ourselves, or are going to, we need them. Like we can't do it. It's like up to them, those people over there. And I was curious, like the marriage of, what you see in terms of the privilege that you see, the privilege that you have, the privilege that you work with, and how you see we can flip that on its head. But let's, yay privilege, let's go do it together.
Yeah. Yeah, if we were to reword privilege and maybe recalibrate it to blessing. Like, oh my gosh, I have the blessing of having two working lungs. I can breathe and have a conversation and not be falling over. I'm not getting short winded. So I have the privilege of two working lungs. I have the privilege of a very healthy mitral valve now. Like, I have the privilege of a warm home when there's like a pretty like big winter storm coming through Pennsylvania right now. The privilege of spending time with my mom this morning, even though we usually are in across the ponds, of the oceans from each other, but we could sit and have tea on the sofa today. So I had the privilege of being next to my favorite mom, or my favorite woman in the whole world, my mom. Um, so there's privilege that just in waking up, like I had the privilege of waking up today, my eyes opened, everything in my body is working. I could remember what I was supposed to do today. My Wi-Fi was working. I know Catherine. That's a privilege. To know other wonderful people is a privilege. Um, so I think if we think of privilege as a blessing or privilege as a gift, and I didn't tell my heart to work this morning, it just did it for me. And I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful that it's all the ventricles and the valves are just collaborating really wonderfully together. Um, so I didn't earn it, but I am going to use it the best way I know how today. I'm going to try to make moments count. I want to make words count. I want to make conversations that matter. I want to do acts and do actions that matter to people. Um,
Yeah.
so that's one way that I think we can maybe take a little bit of a guilt or a shame or a blame out of it, and it's how do we use the privilege of having an education, having access to healthy water, having access to heating and a car and vehicles and transportation and an infrastructure and really nice neighbors. We can just walk outside and you know, shovel the snow together. So I think the more we feel bad about any gifts we've been given or any privilege we have or any um, things that we are benefiting from, it won't really do anyone any good, including ourselves. But if we think, wow, I grew up in a country where I could go to school, education was actually mandatory. It wasn't a barrier to me. Teachers didn't know how to pronounce my name. And that was like always a fun thing to like see what nicknames I was gonna get. Um, but I never had someone say you can't go to school. So I
Yeah.
happened to grow up in a country that said girls should go to school.
Yeah.
In a different day and age or a different geographic location, that would not be the case. So I get to see, ooh, what can I do in order to honor that privilege, honor that gift, honor that path that was open to me, and use it for some good. Like what can I do that might elevate someone else that may not have had that same advantage? Not because I feel bad, but because that makes me feel good. Like it makes me feel good to use it for good.
Yeah. I love that. From as soon as the very first thing you said was about the gratitude for having air in your lungs. And as soon as you said that, I actually felt my chest expand and my lungs fill up. And I know that with each breath you take, pretty much from when you wake up to you go to sleep, you are in constant motion of acts of service, no, small and large. And it's a natural rhythm for you that you have intentionally cultivated, and that you help others cultivate too. And so I want to help people connect with you and possibly do your assessment or pick up a copy of your book. So is it leadyourdesign.com the best place for them to connect with you?
Yes, yes, that would be great. There's a free quiz, so you can have like a very short version of the assessment. And if it's something that you're really interested to discover, how do you lead your life with as much joy and integrity and impact as possible? That's what the leadership assessment is designed to discover for you, with you. And there's also information about the ways that I serve individuals or teams or organizations, really taking the best of individuals, taking the best of our individual and collective cultures, and then create a language and a mechanism for advancing everyone to be successful. Like, how do we create the most vibrant, thriving culture, even if it's in just the microcosm of an organization or of a small team or a solopreneur who's just really, really excited about 2024 and wants to be with other service oriented leaders. So yeah, you can go to the website and see anything that resonates with you. And then if you like a copy of the book, you can just go on Amazon, and the title is Nourished by Diversity.
So we'll make sure all of the links, if you don't see the links yet, we will make sure all of the links get there to you. Leadyourdesign.com, Amazon.com. I know you can find those places, but we'll make it really easy for you to connect with Jaleh. So thank you so much for bringing your leadership and service to our very first conversation here at Future TV. I have absolutely loved it. And I know those watching all the way to the end have loved it as well. And it's given me about 5 other ideas that I'm going to talk to you about in a second. But for now, we will sign off, and we will see you all real soon. Thanks again, Jaleh. Take care, everyone. Bye.